Tonight, the nuclear nightmares of the Cold War return to the world, thanks entirely to Vladimir Putin. In the days after Adolf Hitler invaded Poland, the acclaimed poet W.H. Auden wrote a now famous poem titled September 1, 1939. In the opening lines, he wrote, "Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lands of the earth." President Lyndon Johnson used a line from that poem in what became the most famous presidential campaign ad in history. The last line of the ad was from Auden's poem, "We must love one another or die." That ad sets the stakes for the 1964 presidential election, life and death. And without ever saying the name of the Republican candidate, everything about the ad said that the Republican candidate for President, Barry Goldwater, could not be trusted with nuclear weapons. The ad essentially said Barry Goldwater can get us all killed in nuclear war. This historic TV ad ran only once on NBC, but it was shown repeatedly after that in news broadcasts. The ad was created by the legendary campaign ad man Tony Schwartz, who I worked with on one campaign late in his career. This 1 minute of TV locked in the public mind for the rest of the century the presidential position on the use of nuclear weapons and the zero tolerance for the risk of provoking a nuclear attack from Moscow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Most Americans aren't old enough to remember the Cold War very well. It had many of the same elements of a hot war. War is hell, and a Cold War is its own kind of hell. It was a Cold War because the two greatest nuclear powers in the world at the time, the United States and the Soviet Union, knew that there were absolutely no circumstances in which either could ever fire a shot directly at the other, or nuclear war could and probably would break out, killing more people in both countries within an hour than have been killed in the entire history of war. And that meant that we in the United States just had to watch, just watch, as the Berlin Wall went up and as Czechoslovakia was invaded and all the other cruel aggressions of the Russian dictators who controlled the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons. We had to watch because firing one shot could get us all killed. That's why the United States will not be able to enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine, because that puts the United States and Russia one shot away from a war with each other in which Vladimir Putin has publicly indicated he is willing to go nuclear. Today, after French President Emmanuel Macron took a phone call from Vladimir Putin that lasted 90 minutes, a senior French official said that Macron is convinced that, quote, the worst is yet to come. And he is convinced that Vladimir Putin showed, quote, determination to continue the military operation and to continue it to the end. Ukraine's President Zelensky asked once again today for the United States and NATO allies to provide a no-fly zone over Ukraine. He said, quote, if you cannot introduce no-fly zone now, then tell us now when you will do it. If you cannot tell Ukrainians now when you will introduce it, then what else do you need? Tell us how many people must be blown up, how many legs, arms, heads must be torn off and fly away to finally reach you, to make you introduce a no-fly zone. How many? Tell me the number. I will go myself, and we will count and wait until the time comes. President Zelensky, the bravest president we have seen, President Zelensky is understandably asking for everything he can think of to protect the lives of the people of Ukraine. But President Zelensky has not taken an oath to protect the lives of the people of the United States. President Biden lived through every day of the Cold War and served in the Senate during most of the Cold War. He has spent some portion of every day of his professional life thinking about America's nuclear arsenal. President Biden understands his first duty is to protect the lives of Americans. And so he is doing what every president, Democrat and Republican, did during the Cold War. There are no good choices in a Cold War. President Biden, like every Cold War president before him, is making sure that the United States does nothing to provoke a nuclear attack by Vladimir Putin, who appears to be the most unhinged commander of Russian nuclear weapons in history.
President Zelensky is calling again for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Is that something you're giving any thought to at all?
Again, the reason why that has not been a step the president has been willing to take, or we have been interested in taking, is because a no-fly zone requires implementation. It would require essentially the U.S. military shooting down Russian planes and prompting a potential direct war with Russia, the exact step that we want to avoid.
No nuclear power has ever fired a shot at another nuclear power. Never. Not one shot. And it's not going to happen now. And so no American pilots or NATO pilots will go into the air over Ukraine to enforce a no-fly zone by shooting down Russian pilots, because that is how you enforce the no-fly zone, and because that would risk nuclear war. A risk the President of the United States can never take. Nuclear war is the one kind of war that you won't be able to watch on TV, because New York City would be targeted in a nuclear exchange, as would Washington, D.C., and many other major cities. And so the people in buildings like this one who deliver your TV news wouldn't be here anymore. And you probably wouldn't be here anymore either. If you're not old enough to have lived through the soul-crushing agonies of the Cold War, I am very sorry to say you are living through them now.